Nora Speaks is a weekly podcast that tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community. With show topics such as youth empowerment, education, women's impact, and civic engagement, Nora Speaks challenges the listener to not only join the movement, but be the movement. On the show, you'll learn from insightful guests who have demonstrated capacity in these fields and more, and I'm your host, Nora Muhammad. Welcome to the show.
I want it to be something that is distinctly different from what my generation is doing, most importantly, because as I look throughout the landscape, nobody in my demographic was really standing on this type of truth. And the reason why I know it's important because we've tried everything else. We got people telling us that if you just get a little bit more money, everything could be different. If you go to school, everything would be different. Would that stop white supremacists and stop getting killed in the street? Absolutely not.
This week's guest is a passionate and dynamic young man, Yosef Ben Prince Asiel, and he is the host of Know Thyself Radio. Know Thyself Radio is a podcast that demonstrates how the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad can effectively solve our problems of today. Yosef has a very unique background. He is the son of a mother who was a student and follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and he is also the son of the great Prince Asiel ben Israel, who is the international ambassador of the Hebrew Israelite community. As you will hear in our conversation, Brother Yosef has declared it his personal mission to uplift the Black community and to lead by example in doing so. You'll hear him reference a previous Nora Speaks podcast guest, the recently departed Munir Muhammad. Brother Munir served as a mentor and role model to Brother Yosef, and he is compelled to be an extension of the work of Brother Munir through Know Thyself Radio. This is a dense conversation, and you will hear the passion and dedication of our brother. We talk about our young people needing to get it together. Well, this young brother has it together. He is a husband, a father, a businessman, and he is serving his community in more ways than one. Hear it for yourself in my conversation with Yosef Ben Prince Asiel. Welcome to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. We are in for a special treat in this episode. We are joined with our good brother, Brother Yosef Ben Asiel. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Assalamu alaikum to you, my sister, and to your wonderful listeners.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. That is beautiful to be able to be greeted by a guest with those beautiful words of peace, that prayer of peace. And I think that with the time that we're living in, certainly a prayer of peace is definitely necessary.
Most certainly.
So, Brother Yosef, you are in the Midwest. You're there in Chicago.
Yes, ma'am.
So I know that you have a lot to share with us. Specifically, we're going to talk about your podcast. But before we get to that, your entrepreneurship and the great things that you're doing in your community, let's open up the show by telling the audience a bit about yourself.
It'll be a pleasure and honor. First, I would be remiss in my duties and my responsibilities. First, in the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom praise is forever due. We thank that great God for revealing himself. And we just know that we celebrated his arrival July 4th, a holy day for us, the Black man and woman here in America, but globally. And we thank him for raising up a special soul, a special body, a special person, the one we know as the messenger of Allah, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Again, I greet you, my beloved sister, and your listening audience in the words of peace and paradise of Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
First, my story may be a little unique in regards to how I got to this point. You may know, but to inform your audience, my father is a Hebrew Israelite. He is one of the most well-known Hebrew Israelites, not just in the Hebraic community, but in the global community for Black empowerment. He started his journey in 1971, as most Black men here in America who had got to the point where they were fed up, enough was enough, and that they knew that they need to do something else for themselves. And though my father was deeply affected by the messenger of Allah, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, he wasn't able to fully pull the trigger on becoming a Muslim follower. Though he had great reverence and he appreciated everything that was done by the nation, like I said, the world just put too many impediments for him to fully come in, though he was definitely a sympathizer. But in 1971, he and a group of brothers embarked on a spiritual journey and found their connection with the scripture and returned back to Israel. And they had established a community in Dimona, Israel, which has been there for 50 years. And my mother, who he ended up marrying in the late 80s and gave birth to me, was a Muslim follower of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and Jail Muhammad. My father's name is Prince Asiel bin Israel. I'm sorry for not mentioning it first. And she was very special to me. She has made transition now. She's been gone since 2006. But as I look back at my youth, I'm really so grateful of what she had instilled in me. Though the messenger wasn't forced as much as I thought he should have been looking back, but now as I mature, I understood it was a free will offering. And she knew maybe if she pressed too hard that I might reject and be a full-fledged Negro, which we see a lot of our people have become. And I say that not in jest, but as a reality, you know, and I just want to be frank. But because it was a situation where she gave me hints and signs about something that would come in a later date in my life, gave me a knowledge and gave me a love for Islam that I would later need in my growth and development. But to fast forward, I want to get to kind of where things really got going for me. So in 2007, after coming out of high school, my mother making transition, I was set to go into college. And she always wanted me to be a doctor, go into medical field. So I said I'd meet her halfway and become a dentist. And I decided to reach out for my father. I didn't live with him because of his work. He took him all over the world. So I stayed with my mother. But I knew it was something that he had that I needed, not just as a son, but as a man who was seeking something greater than his environment. Because up until that point, my mind was totally consumed by sports and athletics, and mostly the things that young men in this world would get caught up in, especially in the mid 2000s. So at that time, I knew he had many connections and he had many relationships that he had built through his tenure as the international ambassador for the community. And one said relationship was with a husband and wife who had their own practice, their own dentistry practice down in St. Louis. So I inquired about maybe doing an understudy with these beautiful couple to learn about being a dentist and get firsthand knowledge of what it would take for me to be an efficient dentist, to say the least, or if it's something I really want to do and I wasn't just doing for the sake of my mother. And in going down there and being down there for maybe a week, it was a wonderful experience. But I came back and I told my father that everything had went well and I appreciated the experience. So he asked me, "Are you ready to become a dentist?" And I told him no. And he almost looked perplexed. He said, "I thought everything went, well. I thought everything was good." And I said, "It did, sir. But one thing that I learned by going down there was that I would do better for my people and for myself understudying him, because the whole time I was down there, my sister, these black men spoke so highly of my father and talked about the greatness that he had implemented in their lives and everybody else he had touched. And so I said, I think it'd be better if I studied a man of God. And so that's what started this journey for me. I looked at my circumstance and my situation, because up until that point, I didn't see black men and women affectionately talk about another black man in such a way. So that had a profound effect on me, to say the least. And I said to myself, at the very least, even if I don't really understand the magnitude of what's going on, I want somebody to have those same feelings, those same sentiments towards me as a man, and that's what kind of started this journey. And then I studied under him for the next 8 to 9 years, and it got to a point where, and I'm trying to speed through it a little bit, bear with me, but I got to the point where in 2013, though I had met Brother Munir Muhammad, who is the co-founder of Crow and the business manager. I didn't have a personal relationship. It was always through with my father, interviews, conversations. But I had the beautiful opportunity in 2000, fast forward another 2 years, 2015, to do an interview with Brother Munir. And I shared that story with Brother Munir, and he's seen something different in me because out of all the children that 10 plus children that my father have, I was the only one who articulated a conversation as such. I was the only one who said, I want to do the spiritual work, and not just get caught up into the vanities of this world, and not to take away from anything that my brother or my sisters are doing. They're doing great things, but I'm unique in this way that I'm the only one that took up that mantle to improve the lot of our people. And so he said, well, he kind of nurtured that feeling, that sentiment. He invited me to Crow and would take me to certain events and show me different teachings of the message. He said, well, I have something if you're really serious about this, brother. I got a man that can take it to the next level. And he was so strategic in this. And I'm really looking back at this, my sister. I'm so grateful that Allah God has blessed me with such wonderful opportunities to become the man that I am today, and hopefully to supersede and pass the man that I am now into an even greater man and a servant of Allah, God. That he didn't force nothing on me because he knew the love that I had for my father. He knew the admiration I had for him. He didn't want to force the message on me like my mother didn't want to force the message on me. But because he was so diligent, he was so dedicated in his love and the preservation of the teachings of the message of God, it was infectious. It was an environment at Crow where the walls would speak to you, the pictures would talk to you, the books would come alive. And I found myself more and more at that location, wanting to study, wanting to know more about myself. Because up until that point in the kingdom, we taught Hebrewism in the context of a 6,000-year history, which is good, but then you come into the message of God, you're talking about 66 trillion years. You're talking about a whole nother realm. You're talking about the creation of God, the beginning of time. These are conversations that just were never had. These are conversations I didn't even know to ask. And so once this knowledge started to come to me, it started to awaken something in me. I said, okay, I found the home that I've been looking for. And I'm not saying that to disparage nothing that anybody else is doing, but when you find the apex of something, as a spiritual man, we have a duty and an obligation to not just take hold to that, but to uplift that message. And it took a while. It was a process because I had to mature on it. I had to really understand what it meant to be a follower of the messenger. I had to know what it really meant to believe that the messenger was the messenger. Because a lot of people, we give lip service, but to know that the messenger of God is who he is, you have to believe in the God that he says he represents. So I had to come to grips that God is not a spook nor a spirit, but an actual man. And though we wasn't taught as a Hebrew that God is a spook or a spirit, we wasn't taught that God is a fleshly man either. We taught that God is in us, God can possess us, but to put him in a body, that was a conversation again that just was never had. And so for me, the things started to open up and I had to come to grips with that, but it made all the sense in the world. If we're made in his likeness and his image, when you look in scripture or Quran, you see it go through all the book that God would come and reveal himself as a man. He would work as a man. You talk about a body that was prepared, a special body that would be prepared. Who would they be talking about? So if we give validity to these books, then we have to give validity to what the messenger taught. And why wouldn't we, as a people who have been so destitute, so beaten down, so destroyed, so reduced to nothing, finally have the opportunity to be lifted up again, to be a people of consequence, to be a people of a knowledge that has the power to bring freedom, justice, and equality to the planet? Why wouldn't we grab hold into that beautiful opportunity to have God actually reveal himself, take himself out of his glory, and be a savior to us again? I mean, that's the most beautiful thing that we could ask for as a people. And so it made all the sense in the world to me. So I said, as a Hebrew, if I'm going to be a Hebrew, I'm going to be a Hebrew follower of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. Not in the sense that I'm reducing myself, because Islam is my nature. I can't not be a Muslim. You know what I mean? Once I really learned about what it was, even if I wanted to take some Hebrew or some Hebrew cultural practices, I knew that at the root of every decision, everything that I teach, every action that I produce, it had to come from what the messenger of God was teaching. And once I understood that, I knew, okay, I have a work that I have to do, and I have a mission that must be fulfilled. So that's kind of to not be too long, you know what I mean, my
Well,
beautiful
you know
sister?
what, brother? If I could just thank
Please.
you for that history. I mean, it's so dense, and I think it would probably be safe to say that besides Brother Munir Muhammad, who was I think my second guest on the podcast, besides him, you're probably the most well traveled guest that I've ever had. But so, to give the listeners context regarding you're talking about Crow there in Chicago. I just want to explain that CROW is the Coalition for the Remembrance of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the co founders of CROW are Brother Munir Muhammad, who, as I said, was a guest in a prior episode, Brother Shahid Muslim, and Brother Halif Muhammad. And these were three brothers who, with others, recognized that in the 1970s, after the departure of Elijah Muhammad, they saw that his history was being written out and he
Absolutely.
was being excluded in the very towns and the cities that he uplifted the Black people in those areas into not just people who were in picket lines and boycotts and protests, but to people who could provide employment for each other, people who could heal the sickness through dietary changes, people who could, as we say, raise the dead, not physically, but the mentally dead, the spiritually dead, get men and women off the streets, create families, and build strong communities. So in his absence, in watching him being written out of history, these three men decided to start with reminding the people of Elijah Muhammad, his legacy, and all that he did. And they started with just a billboard that said, "Do you remember this man?" And then fast forward over 32 years later, they have an institution, a library, an archive. In the United States government has the Congressional Library. Those who are interested in studying a complete history of Black people in America and throughout the world, then our congressional library would be Crow. And so there in Chicago, you can find all of the history that's relevant and accurate. And they've done a wonderful job, not just archiving photographs, newspapers, yearbooks, recordings, video recordings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and others, but they also have television studio there where they broadcast every day in Chicago and other major markets across this nation, where you can see Black media with a Black message. And that's very unique because we might turn on BET or our local urban radio station because we want Black media, but that's media that is representing a mindset that is geared towards tearing the Black community down. And that's why the music is not love music anymore. The music is brother against brother, sister against sister, and brother and sister against each other. So when Brother Yosef is talking about the significance of remembering and honoring and learning and studying the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this is the context in which he's discussing. And having a mother who was a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and having a father who is as powerful as he was, and you being in between and receiving the knowledge of both, brother, that certainly puts you in a very unique place to reach our people, especially our young brothers who are in the street, who kind of are without fathers, who are without mothers today, and who are certainly at a loss for their way. So I know there in Chicago, I think the last time I was there, you had a brother with you then. I was out there the February before last, I
Yes.
believe. And, just seeing your dedication to your community and using the knowledge that you have to impact our community. I want to hear more about that.
Oh, absolutely. And you're absolutely correct. Everything that God has propelled me to do, it has been with the motivations of improving our circumstance and situation for our people. Is I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't see anything that I would want to participate in or partake in that is not effective for developing the minds, the spirits, and the strength of our people. And the reason why I feel that the messenger of God is the perfect antidote for that reality is because his 44 prolific years here in the wilderness of North America proves that. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about a man who had the ability to take drug addicts. We had the man to take thieves and criminals, and I
Mm-hmm.
mean the worst that society was producing, from us being disconnected of knowledge of self, and turn them a total 180 into an upright, strong,
Mm-hmm.
dependable, courageous people again. So, I mean, that in its own, I mean, is worth not just mentioning, but trying to implement and replicate in this day and time. So,
Right.
every brother that I go to, this is the conversation that I have. And a lot of people, it sometimes a little off putting because they don't believe that somebody, in my age range, though I'm getting up in age, I'm 30 now, so I'm getting a little grown, but they don't believe that somebody can sincerely talk and think this way 24/7 until they get in my company and say, oh, this is not a front. This is not a facade. This is how this brother really thinks. Because, like you
That's
said,
right.
I've been privileged to be exposed to so much. I've been to the continent of Africa. I've been to different parts of Europe. I've been to Asia and different. So I've had the opportunity to see things in a whole nother light. And I've seen what a people can do if they just have a little self-determination. And I've seen what a people can do when they have all avenues of light cut from them. And so
Mm.
with both perspectives, it gives me another level of encouragement, but also it gives me the propensity to know that I don't have 1 second to waste. And
Right.
so, like you said, I have to go into the communities, and I feel I don't do enough. Believe me, I agonize day and night, sister, about what I'm not doing. And I try my best to be as disciplined as possible to this job and as diligent to the job. But it's so much that's going on that I feel that I just can't reach enough brothers and sisters. But I try as much as possible to
Mm.
bring as many with me to the truth. I try to bring as many as I can have a conversation to Crow, not to hear me, not for vanity, but to show them something that I feel if they had the pure environment and the pure light to see that they could appreciate. And if they could appreciate it, I know they could implement it long enough to make a change in their life. Because we think we have the messenger of God, but we never got the messenger of God. We've either gotten it through back channels of somebody and their own interpretation, and so it's been watered down, or we have somebody that's trying to besmirch the messenger, trying to use his domestic affairs as a way to delegitimize him. And so we've been given lies and confusion as it relates to the messenger of God, meaning that we've been given lies and confusion in relationship to God. So if you don't know
Right.
the messenger of God, you damn sure, excuse my language, don't know God. It's impossible because we've
Right.
been given everybody's else perspective of God except the true one who actually had the ability to meet with God. And so
Mm.
that's what separates what we're doing from everybody else. If you say you're spiritually inclined, if you believe in divinity, you have to see the message, especially if you're a black man or woman in this day and time,
Mm.
because we've tried everything else.
Right.
Everything
Right.
else. So to answer your question, yeah, I'm getting in the streets and I'm trying to reach my people where I can, whether it be with food, whether it be with clothing, whether it be with just conversation. But it all goes back to the teachers. That is, I feel, has to be my foundation because I know that that's a foundation that's unshakable.
Mhm. Right. And just thinking about the entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurial spirit that you have, you know, just, going back into the history in the 50s and the 60s, when many Black leaders and Black clergy
Mhm.
were trying to find their way out of human right indignities through
Teach.
integration and the disintegration of the segregation in America. They thought that they would find prestige and prominence
Hmm.
through the desegregation and that process. And while our Christian brothers were um, on the front lines for what they were fighting for and what they thought would be civil rights, the and also suffering the indignities when they would be unarmed
Teach.
and totally nonviolent, and they wouldn't practice the natural law of self-defense. They were being abused and they were being taken advantage of, and not just the men but the women and the children as well. When this was happening, the messenger, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he took another road, and he said, well, let's be self-determining. Let's, have our own stores. Let's have our own counters. Let's have our own transportation companies. And that is where the differentiation occurred between those civil rights leaders and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam. And so that spirit of putting in a black man and a black woman the notion that they can solve their own problems, that was novel. That was very unique. And our people were so reliant, coming from the plantations of their slave masters to the sharecropping in the former slave masters' plantation fields, to the convict leasing,
Mm-hmm.
the black codes, and Jim Crow. Our people were really unguided, and they thought that, closer proximity to their former slave masters was the way out. And so Elijah Muhammad said, no, you make your own way out. Come follow me. And so that's the vein in which you're operating in. Let's do something for ourselves and be an example to our brothers and sisters. And, with you being in the streets, with you selling, garments and clothing, and the restaurant, I want to talk about that, and definitely give a shout out to the
Mm-hmm.
restaurant, and the work that you're doing on the street. You said a lot of people say that they have, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I remember my sons would identify someone as Muslim, and I would say, well, how do you know that he's Muslim? This is when they were very, very
Mm-hmm.
young. And they would say, well, they said Assalamu
Yeah.
alaikum. you know so I had to, differentiate someone knowing the language,
Yes.
kind of knowing the words, but not putting them into practice. And I said, if someone's not sacrificing, not working, then they might know the language, but they don't know the practice. And you're definitely practicing it there in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk more about that.
Absolutely. And you hit it right on the head. Arabic is a language, Islam is a way of life.
Mm,
That's why the messenger gave us a new Islam than what was given in the East, because those people, though they may be speaking a language that has connectivity to us of ancient and us of old, but the actions were not those who produce peace. They weren't the peacemakers of this planet. We are. And that's what the messenger of God did. And you talked about this, the multifaceted, multi-level industry that he created from every aspect of nationhood, or what a nation would need. You're talking about commerce, you're talking about the ability to create restaurants and schooling and farms and trucking. I mean, logistics, things that we don't even conceptualize in this day and time. We can have a product, but how do you get that product from point A to point B? This is things
right.
that we don't think about. And why is that so important? The messenger, I'm gonna get to what I'm doing, but I just have to, if I may, the messenger understood that he gave us the blueprint on how to be a free people. Whether
Mm,
this white man pulls the bottom out of his economic systems and his money is not worth nothing, which we know he can do and he has done throughout history. History is replete with examples. He knew that we would have the fundamental understanding of how to be independent people no matter what. And that
right.
is something that we cannot take for granted. And that's
Right.
why, for me, it's so much more than producing garments. It's so much more than having a restaurant to be able to sell food. Do black people do that? Of course they do. Have they been
Mm,
successful? Yes. But it's about the ability to create, no matter
mm,
what, to take what it seems like nothing and create something. As
right.
architects, we see empty lots and we see buildings, where people
Right.
just see dirt and rocks. We see infrastructure, we see parks, we see schools. So
Right.
that's what the message of God has given his followers, to see an empty lot and be able to create in their mind first a whole
Mm,
multi-level infrastructure of whatever they need for that people to thrive and survive. And so that's what I kind of wanted to be for myself. I say, well, I started working out and doing things again. So I didn't want to wear Nike no more. I didn't want to wear Reebok. I want to wear something that's representative of us. Because
right.
in the clothing line, I'm still teaching. That's why I affectionately named it Black Royalty. Black being the essence of what the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us, to be proud to be black again. Because, in the time where he taught me in black, was a derogatory statement. You know what I mean? So when do we start to appreciate that word again as Black people? Is when the messenger made it had value again. And so I want to reiterate that in the clothing. Don't be afraid to be Black. I have my own brothers and sisters, some biological, some not. Are you sure you want to call it Black? You're going to isolate your. So what?
Right.
You know, so what? We have to be totally confident in who and what we are. We have to have conviction that no matter what other people think, we know we're standing on the square truth. We can't have no fear or reservations about what we're doing. So of course, and they use Black all the time. You know, they try to say it's negative, but when they are doing profits in their business, they say they're in the Black.
Right.
So you know, anything there's they try to make it be negative for us, but they know Black is a positive. So nevertheless, so everything. I mean, so even when you buy clothing, I break down what the logo means, what the name means. I give you the teaching. So I'm trying to do it subtly because at the very least, if you're not going to come directly to Crow, I'm going to bring Crow to you because you're going to have to wear clothes. You know what I mean? You're going to have to do these certain things, even with the food. And I thank my father and my mothers for establishing Soul Vegetarian. And if I had the blessed opportunity to kind of have an offshoot that I run, me and my wife, called Vegan Now, which is in the West Loop of Chicago. It's like a little kiosk. It's not a full-fledged restaurant, but it's sufficient enough for what we're doing. But at the same time, I'm able to implement aspects of how to eat to live. Because these are things that our people must have to be efficient again. You must be able to have food, clothing, and shelter. So I'm trying to position myself in these certain arenas so that I can be a example of what we should be doing and what we could do on an even greater level if we implement the teachers in our life. So I'm getting into the housing and everything soon enough when I create some more resources, but it's a part of the process. But I want to let our people know that this is a process that we must participate in. We can't sit idly by hoping and thinking somebody else is going to do something for us. The message of God, I know reparations has been a topic of conversation for our people, and they're pushing it and pushing it, but the messenger talked about it. He talked about having land in states of our own with financial compensation. This is a conversation that's already been had, but we try to act like this is something new or something in Cobra started. No. The messenger been having this conversation with our people, but he also knew that he wasn't going to wait for the white man to wake up and do something that's contrary to his nature. He had to still produce everything we needed as a people. And I'm imploring our people to look at that model in this day and time. Ask for it, push for it, whatever. If that's the conversation you want to have, but don't stop working for self. Don't stop doing for self. Like you said earlier, be a self-determining people, be a self-efficient people so that we can produce the change that we need in this world. And so that is why I got into these different avenues of endeavors of creating finances and things, because at this point, my first love and my only love is to teach and to speak this truth, but it hasn't got to the point where it's able to yield finances for me. So I have to create other ways so I can be free enough to do this, you know? And so that was another reason why I said, okay, let me do something that I'm able to produce something that's positive for my people. I can still teach, but I can do it in a way that they don't know I'm teaching them, because you got to trick out people. Unfortunately, you know, I don't want to use the word trick, but, you know, you have to kind of put the medicine in the sucker, you know what I mean?
Right, that's right.
You got to give them some candy with it. So, and, you know, and this is the approach that I take, but at the same time, if I can generate some revenue that I can put back into the building of our nation, that'd be a plus as well. So that has been the motivating force and why I started to do these certain things.
Yes. And you said your clothing line is Black Royalty?
Black Royalty, yes.
Beautiful. Yeah. And that's for men and women?
Yeah, so we started off mostly, it started off with just t-shirts, and now we got into the tracksuits, the jumpsuits, so working out, running errands, that type of thing, because my whole approach was, for me, you know, when I'm not in a suit or in my garments, I need something that I could work out in and be casual, that, you know, I'm not being branded by a slave owner. So that's why I came up with Black Royalty. But quite naturally, it's expanded right now. I'm working on more of some women products, because the same thing is having that modesty, but at the same time, you can be comfortable. You know what I mean? Something is representative of us. One of the definitions for royal or royalty is a people that do something with ease, without difficulty. And I'm saying, that's when you understand the power of your blackness, things come easy. When you understand the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, things come easy. So that's what the black royalty means. Once you accept truth of knowledge of self, the God and the devil, everything else is easy. So,
Beautiful.
that's kind of been the mission behind the clothing line. Praise be to Allah.
Beautiful. And so for the listeners in Chicago or who are visiting Chicago, you said that Vegan Now is your kiosk.
Yes.
And where can they find that? What is the address?
The location is 131 North Clinton Street, Clinton Street. And it is in the West Loop area, downtown area of Chicago, Illinois.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And so I'm wondering, how is the Black community receiving something as unique as vegan food, vegan soul food, if you will?
Well, the irony of Vegan Now is that it's in a location that has kind of been gentrified over the last 8 to 10 years. So that particular location gets a mixture of everybody. We do get a lot of our blacks, but we get Asians, we get whites. And so I looked at it from the premise, if they could come in our neighborhoods and take our money, we sure can go in their neighborhoods and get some of that money back and bring it home. So that has been the premise of kind of why that location has been kind of beneficial for us now. But our main hub, Original Soul Vegetarian, is in the heart of the Black community on 75th and Indiana. It's been there for 35 years, I believe now. And yes, the main driving force is the Black community, and they love it. We've been a staple there. We've been more than just a restaurant. It's been a cultural experience. And that's what's, I think, produced our longevity, is that we've been consistent. It's been something you can trust. And then, having a relationship that my father's had with the community, you have that activism, reality there as well. So it's a beautiful thing on that side. And, we don't get that political on the other location, but they know whenever you see me there, and if you have any connection who I am, you know what I bring to the table. So, that's a beautiful thing as well.
That's wonderful. I was there, I'm like, walking distance to Philadelphia. Absolutely. Here in Camden, New Jersey. And there is in Philadelphia a Jamaican vegan place.
Oh, beautiful.
And I've been in there and they get heavy traffic. So I'm glad to see our people are becoming more conscious, with our dietary habits.
Absolutely. No,
that's wonderful.
We can't think, no, I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off. As it close on this. Yeah, we can't think that we're going to be efficient people if we're not fueling our bodies properly. Whether we want to accept it, whether we know it or not, we're in a war. And when you're in war, you have to understand that the activities that the adversary use is not just a physical form of warfare, but it's every aspect. He weaponizes the food. He weaponizes the educational system, or the so-called educational system, the medical system, the social systems, the marital and relationship. Everything has been weaponized in a sense that it is meant to destroy you and to keep you weak and destitute. So we're trying to reverse some of these things, you know what I mean? And that's why I work with my wife, to show that we're trying to remove that enmity that has been put between man and woman, that the scripture says that we know that this white man has continued to produce amongst our people, to divide and conquer. So, I have her up front, I bring her with me whenever I do any speaking. I have the daughters there. I have 2 young daughters, and I want them to feel comfortable seeing a black man talk with strength, not cowering down, not being bent over, and cowardice. No, you won't see that ever in me. And I want them to have that same love for me that I have for the messenger of God, and I have for men and women who represent that message, So they have to know from a young age what they're embarking on. And a part of that is the food. You can't skip that. You have to feed yourself properly. Like the messenger said, eat to live, not live to eat, which we know is going to bring you closer to death.
Right. Wonderful. Earlier, brother, you mentioned that you're not as engaged as you would like to be. You're still, kind of juggling a lot of things and building your foundation, in fact, and so you can't be every place you want to be, talking to everyone that you want to speak to. And with your podcast, Know Thyself Radio, you have that opportunity to reach a broader audience, right? Yes. So, first of all, I want to tell you, I love the podcast.
Thank you so
much. I really do.
I was listening to yours actually all weekend and all day. I was trying to catch up as much as possible. And my sister, I know you're supposed to be talking about me, but I just have to take a brief moment to really commend you on what you're doing. You have an angelic voice, and listen to you articulate the messages, teachings, and just the spirit of what he has put in you is a wonderful thing. And I really genuinely thank God Almighty for you taking on this work. And Minister Brother Rasim, who is a beautiful brother and a great example and a wonderful leader there at Camden, I thank him for producing someone like you and doing what he's doing. And I'm just so happy to be on this platform and to share this work with you, my sister.
I appreciate that, brother. And listening to Know Thyself Radio, for me, it's very refreshing. There is nothing, no podcast that I've found that's anything like it. As you talked about, hearing a Black man, just speak so proudly, so profoundly, and so proudly, and so unapologetic, and that is what our community, our young men, our young ladies, we need to see a man that's representing strength, not just based on theory, but based on, actual
Absolutely.
facts and what we can produce with the theory. And that's what you're doing. And I want to know what encouraged you to start the podcast. I know on the show a few times you've mentioned, being inspired by Brother Munir and Crow, and, they are definitely inspirational, but this is something that you're doing kind of on your own. It's your voice.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have to, like you said, first, I have to thank Brother Munir because I see myself as an extension, as a continuation to what he has done with Crow TV, Munir Muhammad Show, and Muhammad and Friends. I look to him and I see the work that he has done for 30 plus years. And I know he has a lot of brothers and sisters who have helped him throughout the years, but he's been holding much of that responsibility himself. So I wanted to be a helper in that aspect because God has given me first the desire to speak this message and to fulfill this mission, but also the ability to articulate it well enough that I can convey a message clearly. And so for me, knowing that we talked about doing something like this in other avenues, doing a TV show, doing more visuals, but I just wanted the people to hear the voice first. I've been listening to podcasts as well, and I know it's a booming market now. And like you said, there's nothing else out there. And I said, well, there's enough comedians out there. There's enough guys talking about pop culture and rap and hip hop and sports, but very, very few talking about the messenger of God. And if they are, they mention him here and there, but nothing that is totally centered around what he has given us. And that's what I wanted to do because I feel I would be a hypocrite if I didn't have something that was representative of what I feel in my heart. If I say I love the messenger, if I say I believe in what he has taught us, if I know it's good, not just for me, but for all of our people, why wouldn't I share that message? Why wouldn't I be so adamant on everything that I do into producing something that gives the people opportunity to hear it for themselves? And so that's what I wanted to do with Know Thyself Radio. I wanted to show the lies that have been put out on the messenger. I wanted to show how different his actual words are versus what people say he has said and say he has done, and that's why I make it a point, especially now, that I always read from one of his books, because I want you to hear from him. Yes, it's my interpretation, or not even my interpretation, but just my analysis on what he has said. But I want people to know what he's saying and take it for yourself. Yes. And I give you the page number and chapter so you can read it. And I encourage and implore my people to do so, because he is the one who has inspired all of us, whether we admit it or not. Some who are open, like you and I, and Brother Munir, and Brother Rasim, Brother Minister Rasim, and so forth and so on. But a lot of other people who are closet messenger followers and admirers who don't give him credit, but use his teachings and his knowledge to self-aggrandize them. So, I want it to be something that is distinctly different from what my generation is doing, most importantly, because as I look throughout the landscape, nobody in my demographic was really standing on this type of truth. And the reason why I know it's important, because like we said earlier, we've tried everything else. We got people telling us that if you just be homosexual, everything could be different. If you just get a little bit more money, everything could be different. If you go to school, everything could be different. Well, hell, if we all went homosexual, would that stop white supremacists and stop getting killed in the street? Absolutely not. How would you even tell us something silly like that? We've been going to school. Has that changed anything?
Right.
Of course not.
Right.
Bill Cosby almost had $1 billion. Did that change anything? So everywhere we turn and look, we see the lies and deception that have been put on us
Right.
by this white man. So I wanted to give people the God and his message to show you that this is the solution. When we were truly a successful people in this 400 plus years, it was under his tutelage, it was under his guidance. Let's bring that back and let's fulfill what he has started so that we can be who God has made us to be. The hard work has been done. God has came and he has raised up a messenger. The messenger has dedicated his life to teaching what the God has given him. All we have to do is take that message, not create our own, not put our own spin on it, but give the people Elijah and let them transform themselves.
You know, brother, that's so necessary. You know, I appreciate what you're doing with the podcast because, you know, our history has been so whitewashed.
Absolutely.
You know, Black history, if we want to call it that, you know, the history of Dr. King, the history of Malcolm X, and certainly, you know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, his history has certainly been whitewashed. And for you to give the listeners his own words, his for himself, you know, because his what he says makes sense. It speaks naturally. I mean, if a person is Ugandan, it's going to make sense. If a person is Italian, it's going to make sense. If a person is from Ecuador, it is going to make sense because what he's saying is natural, right? Those principles are universal. The trouble for us is we'll take the interpretation of our own man from another man. You know, and we get, you know, tripped up. So I think what you're doing with that podcast is wonderful. And even, brother, hearing the perspective that you have in one episode really stuck out to me. And it was the episode where you were talking about Duchess Megan.
Oh, yes.
You know, and I don't recall which episode that was, but you know, if you're listening, just go back and listen to that episode.
Yes.
The second episode, because we're not getting perspective like that, you know, and that's one of the things that I love about Crow and the Munir Muhammad show or Muhammad and Friends is we're getting media from a Black perspective.
Yes.
You know, not something that's controlled, contrived, or for a special interest, you know, and I really appreciated that. And for me, it's just very refreshing.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And that's another thing that I wanted to definitely do in junction with giving the messages teachers. I wanted to use current real life events to give the examples of how we've been lied to and deceived and how if we implement his teachings, brings forth the solution almost instantly. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, you know, I take these news events or these circumstances to really illustrate the deception that has been put on our people. Because like I said, there's no other way out of this other than through God and his messenger. And so I want to try to validate with as many possible examples that I can. So to show our people that, hey, okay, look at this. No, that didn't work either. Look at this. No, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? Like, because I know our people, they so stubborn. You got to beat them over the head more than once, you know. And I say that I bring some levity into the conversation, but this is really a serious matter because what he has done to us, it's really despicable. All avenues of light have been cut off from us, and we have been reduced to the beasts of the field. And so, like I said earlier, the only one that I knew had the ability to transform us, to resurrect us, has been the messenger of God, using the teachings of Almighty God Allah, who appeared in the personage of Master Farad Muhammad. And so I can say that confidently because I know that to be true. You know, we are past the stage of belief at this point. We know it in our heart because we know how it has affected us and what we're able to produce just speaking those words, you know? And that's what I want to get our people comfortable with. Though my language may be in this day and time a little offensive, you know, may be a little judgmental, but we need it. Like you said, we need this refreshing talk to go in conflict of what has been given us. You know, though it may sound a little bit more pleasant, it's terrible for us. It's like that medicine you see on TV that say it cures one thing but causes 10 other diseases. And that's the circumstance of what the white man has given us. And I want to say, no. We got to fix this at the root. We have to go to the root of the problem. And so that's what Know Thyself Radio is for. And I pray Almighty God Allah continues to give me the encouragement, the knowledge, and the fortitude to continue on so that I can continue to do this work and hopefully wake up some people along the way, and to know that you're listening and you're doing such a great job in Camden and throughout this country, especially on the East Coast. But you to take the time out to listen to little me, and I'm just getting started, and you'd appreciate it. I mean, it means that I must be doing something right. So I thank you so much, sister, for that.
Well, brother, you said that, your language might be offensive. Well, our condition is
Teach,
offensive.
teach.
So we're going to need a language that's going to, produce a different kind of an outcome.
Yes.
And that's simply what you're doing. And I definitely appreciate it. My son and I were driving. Well, he's 17, so
Yeah.
he's taking his hours to drive so he
Teach.
can pass the driving test. And we were listening to you and brother Jamil Munir
Oh, absolutely.
homage, and he just said, "Yeah, we got to get back out to Crow. I want to get back out there and
Mm.
establish a relationship." He says, Brother Minister Wasim Muhammad has a relationship with Brother Munir, but I want to, the brothers, the young
Oh,
brothers, we
man.
have this whole crop of young men, and he wants to, establish a relationship like the older men have, but with the younger men. And I just said, that would be a beautiful thing.
Yes.
We're gonna have to plan a trip out there.
Absolutely. And that's what it's about. And that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that conduit between the generations. I wanted to represent what has been instilled in me from my teachers, my elders, my bigger brothers and sisters, but be an example for my brothers who are my peer group and definitely younger, because we have to, in our generation, continue this work. And we're only going to be able to do it by actually working. And so we have to have these relationships. We have to have these commitments. We have to have this understanding and this desire to do this. And to hear your son, I mean, I just thank Almighty God a lot. I mean, well, what else would he think with a mother like you? But still to show that he has the desire for himself, because he can choose whatever he wants. We want our children to pick what we want them to pick, but at the same time, we know how this thing goes. So for him to make that choice on his own, for him to want to build and continue the work that has already been established, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And that's why I actually started this movement with Know Thyself Radio, because I wanted to have the ability to reach and to be the inspiration and exampleship that if we have the messenger and we appreciate the messenger, we're gonna be okay. And sometimes it hits home from mom and dad, but when you hear it outside of home, sometimes you can appreciate it a little bit more. So even those who have already a foreknowledge of the messenger of God, they can inspire them to even just be a little bit more active, which I felt I was doing with Brother Jamil Munir and some of the other brothers and sisters that are younger in age at Crow. I'm doing a good job. So, I thank God again for, that ability and this responsibility.
It definitely makes a difference. So, brother, as we are winding down and closing out the show, I do want to just go back a little bit and talk about fatherhood. One of the things that I talk about often, and I try to share every opportunity I have to do some speaking, especially if my audience is young Black women, is to talk about the significance of a father in a child's life, whether that child is a boy or a girl. Society, it wants to make us think that fathers are disposable or optional, rather. And, just like, girls grow up learning their identity from a woman, well, a boy child is going to need to grow up and learn his identity from a
Teach.
man. And even if it's not his father figure, but that is the best figure, right?
Teach.
Um, so and when there's an absence of that male figure, that father figure, then that child is growing up in an identity crisis, right? And so you're talking about, you know you know kind of, I need to go follow my father. There's something that this man needs to give me,
Absolutely.
right? And then you coming with your daughter saying, my daughters need to watch me, they need
Yes.
to see me, they need to hear me, they need to be involved where I'm involved. So talk about fatherhood, in terms of this society's attack on it.
Absolutely. You said so much, sister. And if I may, if God allows me to unpack this as best to my ability. Um, One thing that I learned, especially when I had my first daughter, she's 6 now. I have two daughters, Eden, who's 6 years old, and Aaliyah, who was 2. And I realized for me to be a father, a fishing father, a good father, hopefully one day a great father, I first must learn how to be an efficient son, a good son, a great
Mhm.
son. And so for me, I said, let me really zone in on what it means to be a son. Let me appreciate listening to my father. Let me appreciate taking heed to his words and his wisdom and implementing his experiences. Because as children, we like to think that our experiences are independent to ourselves, but our parents have went through them 2 or 3 times, you know what I mean?
Right.
And things are not new under the sun, so the scripture teaches. And for me, I said, okay, be patient with myself. Be patient with my father because he knows what's best. So, like I said, it goes back to me being patient really with myself. So, and when you learn that you're just a second self of your father, of your parents, you appreciate them more. And so, for me, after I really tapped in on how to be a son, and I'm still learning quite naturally, but I appreciate the value of being a son and not thinking I know more than my father, not trying to supersede him or impose what I think I've learned in my short period of time on this planet versus what he's been and learned decades and decades. Or anybody that has been a father or mother figure to me, it allowed me to take another approach with my children. Because, like you said, to have a father makes the difference. It's the world of difference. But to have a father that has some type of knowledge is the difference between life and death. And so we have to be, even when it's uncomfortable to what society has been presenting black men to be in this day and time, uncompromising in our belief. We have to be strong again. We have to have morals. We have to have integrity. And listening to what you just said and why what we're doing is so important. A young brother was saying the other day, he was saying about homosexuality in the schools and how they're teaching this in the curriculum now. And that, his approach is, I don't believe it, I don't like it, but I just tell people, do what you do. And that's a dangerous approach. We're not saying being haters or go out and harm somebody, but for you to be dismissive of something that's uncharacteristic to your nature is really bringing on your demise. But you're not going to know that unless a man is at the home to teach you these things. You cannot be dismissive. You cannot be passive when it comes to these things because they're going to be so subtle that it creeps up and it's going to affect and overcome you. And next thing you know, you'll be practicing these things. And that came by the removal of the man from the homes. They say in the scripture, you bound the strong man and rob the house. And that's what they've done. They've robbed us of our culture. They've robbed us of our principles, our integrity, our morals, because the man has been bound. And so we say with the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, we can free the black man again so that he can be in power. So now that the woman can be empowered again, being a woman, not trying to be a man. You don't have to be a man to be who you were meant to be. That is what the white man has tried to impose on us. But he doesn't let the white woman supersede him as the white man in their society. She still knows her role in her position. We're the only people that's confused about what the proper order is. Our children are running amok. They're doing whatever. The woman has no respect for the man. The man is trying his best to be a woman so he can have some respect because he's seeing being a black man has no value no more. Things are just all out of whack. And so one thing that I try to pride myself in is being a masculine, feminine, but intellectual man and not being cowardice and standing on truth and morals. So like you said, I have to do this. And I want, again, my daughters, but anybody who comes in my company to see when they see me, a strong black man.
Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
As we're winding down and closing out, tell us, how can we get Black Royalty?
Absolutely. You can go. The site is live Black Royalty Wear. WEAR.com. Black Royalty Wear. And we got some stuff up. I'm working on another shipment. So in the next month or so, we're going to change some more items and add some more items to it. But you can buy our tracksuits and our t-shirts. And one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the material that is used. So for our t-shirts, we use bamboo and a good rich cotton. So it's unlike just anything you buy, as well as our tracksuits. So everything is of the best quality possible for reasonable prices. And so that's one of the things that we really try to promote. So that's why it has that functionality that you can be in the gym in it, but also you can wear it for leisure as well, running errands and stuff like that.
Great, brother. And how can we follow you on social media?
Social media, you can follow me at, my Instagram is Nasik Yosef, Nasik Yosef, Yosef, and Nasik just means Prince. At Facebook and Instagram, and then you can follow as well on Instagram Black Royalty Wear for the clothing line, and also you can reach me at Know Thyself Radio Show at gmail.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And what I'm going to do is I'll also make sure I include links to all of these in the show notes so that listeners
thank you so much.
Can find you and follow you. It's so important what you're doing, brother. And I just want to encourage you. You know, you are doing so much of what I'm trying to encourage listeners to do through the podcast. You know, I say that this podcast tugs at the soul and consciousness of the Black community because we have to produce a competing message to what we're getting daily. So you're definitely an embodiment of that. And I want to congratulate you and much love and success to you and your family and to the family there at Crow.
Thank you so much. And also, I do martial arts. I've been doing ninjutsu for 10 plus years. So if you're in the Chicagoland area, I don't train as much now, but I will be willing if you want to embark on this, do some training or send you to my training as well. You can train with me so that you can.
And brother, and don't you also run a boot camp?
I run a boot camp, a fitness boot camp as well. That's for the duration of summer. Me and another brother Corey, we do that here. If you're in the Chicagoland area and you hear this, every Saturday, it was from June 1st to August 10th, but we're thinking about extending it to Labor Day weekend, which I think we went ahead and finalized it. So we're going to have that information updated. So to that first weekend of September, I'm going to get the exact dates of this year. I don't do the personal training. Brother Corey, who is my partner in this, he does that. So if you want to get into that, but if you're definitely looking just to get into shape, getting a good company of people to encourage and push you, we work you for that hour, but it's a good functional work. And like we said earlier, it's the aspect of just being mobile. The messenger taught us in the FOI MGT training about being physically active, working the body and having these understandings, like you said. You're in war whether you know it or not, so you might as well be prepared. And that's one of the things that I try to implement. And that as well, though it's not overbearing with the teachers. If you have a conversation with me, it's going to creep in. So I just want to give you forewarning. So, but yeah, that's one of the things that I kind of found a love for, to really just push myself, because I was an athlete in high school and all those things. And I looked up because I was so caught in the books that I kind of got out of shape. And I said, let me get myself back into shape. And so a couple of years ago, that's when I got back into the gym and working out and doing calisthenics. So I just wanted to be an inspiration to other people as well, to use the knowledge that I've acquired over this time in fitness to just help make a change in our people. So whatever I can do to try to benefit our people, I want to do. But like I said, it all goes back to the teachings and building us a nation and empowering our people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother, for being a great guest.
Thank you so much. This was beautiful. And when your schedule permits, I would love to have you on Know Thyself Radio. It'll be an honor.
Oh, I appreciate that. We'll look forward to doing that soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Nora Speaks podcast. Be on the lookout for a new episode coming at you fresh next week. And as always, if you want to learn more about me and the work that I do, visit my website, noraspeaks.com. Or if you have a listener question, email me at info@noraspeaks.com. You can also follow the Nora Speaks podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Nora Speaks Podcast. I'll be sure to include links to the above in today's show notes. If this show has value to you, please subscribe, rate, and review, and share it with family and friends. And be sure to check out previous episodes. And remember, don't just join the movement, be the movement. Stay in peace.